I woke to the soft sound of Marcus knotting his scarf. The room was still dim, curtains breathed with the morning. He stood at the mirror, shoulders squared, hands steady. The scarf was new, a light gray that made his skin look warm. He wrapped it high and neat, and then pressed the fabric flat like he was sealing a letter. Morning, I said. Hey. His voice was bright. To bright. Sleep, okay? Something tugged at me. The scarf sat higher than usual. He'd slept with his hair up last night. We'd laughed about it. I reached for his waist. He swayed in, kissed my cheek, and pulled back fast. You're early, I said. You never beat my alarm. Big day, he said. Daniel's final walkthrough at the venue. He lifted the makeup bag. I'll grab coffee downstairs. I watched him glide out, the scarf not moving at all. In the bathroom I found the first wrong thing. The drawer with my clippers and shaving kit sat open. Empty spot, the small scissors gone, my chest pressed tight. I checked the sink. No hair. I checked the trash clean. When I turned, the door frame caught the light just right, and I saw it. Tiny shiny flakes on the tile by the baseboard like dust that wasn't dust. I crouched, hair dark and short. Marcus, I called. My voice carried down the hall. He didn't answer. I stepped into the hall. The bedroom door had been deadbolted last night. I did it myself. Habit, we lock because I sleep lighter now, and because of the calls, and because of Vernon. I found Marcus in the kitchen with his back to me, shoulders high, hands wrapped around a mug like he was keeping it from falling. The scarf looked perfect. It looked like armor. What happened? I asked. He didn't turn. Let's not start the morning this way. What happened to your hair? His fingers tightened on the mug. It's fine. I moved to his side. He gave me his face, calm and composed, and I saw the tell that only I would see, the tiniest tremble in the eyelid, the muscle that flutters when he holds something heavy inside. Who? I asked low. He stared past me at the window screen. Don't. My brain had already started arranging pieces. The missing scissors, the hair on the floor, the locked door, and the voice of yesterday evening. The one I'd tried to file away like old paperwork. It had started with a ring. The phone screamed across the counter while I was chopping peppers. I wiped my hands and looked down and felt the old ugly grip around my ribs. Vernon. 2 days before Daniel's wedding. I answered. Gladys. He said like the word itself was sour. We need to get on the same page. I won't allow that man to ruin our son's wedding. Marcus is my husband, I said. He's invited by Daniel. Family deserves the first row, he said. Not some charity project you dragged home. I felt my jaw go iron. Say his name. Silence. Just long enough to make space for the hate. Then I'll see you at rehearsal. Click. Now the echo of that click seemed to hang in the kitchen between Marcus and me. The hair, the scarf, the lock. Did he come here? I asked. Tell me the truth. Marcus set the mug down. His hands were steady. I slept. I woke up. It was done. How would anyone get in? I bolted the door. His eyes flicked to the side. That was another tell. He wasn't lying. He was choosing not to say, which with Marcus sometimes meant mercy, sometimes meant fear. Please, he said. Not today. I'm not going to let this slide. Don't escalate, he said. The words were careful. He lifted the mug and took a slow sip like we were just talking about the weather. Daniel needs quiet. You promised him, remember? I did. I'd stood in my son's kitchen last week and sworn to keep the heat off his big day. I meant it then. I meant it now. But there is a promise you make to your child and a promise you make to your partner, who wakes up with a scarf tight to his scalp, and sometimes they grind against each other like gears. Let me see, I said. He looked at me for a long count and then nodded once. We walked back to the bedroom. He closed the door and loosened the knot with slow fingers. The scarf slipped away. They hadn't shaved his whole head. It wasn't clean or even jagged patches, the crown short as velvet, the sides hacked, a childish cruelty, dressed like an adult decision. I swallowed hard. Marcus, I'm okay, he said. It's hair. It's violation. It's hair, he said again, firm. He lifted the scarf. Help me tie it. My hands weren't steady, but I tied it and smoothed it and kissed the spot just above his ear. We need to know how. After the wedding, he said. Please. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be the woman who lets the harm pass through her and dissolve, but my hands were already moving. I pulled the closet door and reached up to the shelf where the small black box lived, the one with the lens that sees more than I wanted to see, the one I'd bought when the calls started and installed when Vernon decided boundaries were for other people. Marcus watched me set the box on the dresser. Gladys, This isn't escalation, I said. It's truth. Truth is quiet. She didn't argue. He put a palm on my chest and held it there until my breathing matched his. Then he nodded once, like he was loaning me the strength and also the line I was not supposed to cross. I checked the bedroom camera's memory. The indicator gave me last night's slice. I grabbed the hallway unit from the shoe cabinet and snapped it back into its mount. I'd pulled it down last week to swap cards. I cursed myself for letting it sit on the bench. We did a slow lap. Bedroom, hall, front door. The deadbolt showed the jam was clean. The kitchen window lock was in place. The back door had the extra chain. I tried the keys we keep on a hook. One was missing. Not ours. An extra I'd made for Daniel when he used to drop by to borrow cookbooks. We'd given it back to him when he moved. He must have returned it one holiday and I'd forgotten, or my head was far ahead of my feet. I forced myself to slow. Who has keys? I asked. Daniel. Marcus said. Maybe Ashley. That's all I know. I heard the hesitation, like a softer word hiding behind his louder one. I didn't press. I went to the desk, opened the laptop, and slotted the memory card into the reader. The screen woke with a blue glow. The folder tree popped up. Neat and ordinary. Midnight stamps. 1 a.m. 2. Marcus stood beside me, one hand on my shoulder, the other pressing the scarf at the nape like he was holding himself together. Gladys, he said, not a warning this time. A plea and something else. Permission. I'll keep it small, I said. Just us. The hallway thumbnail showed the grainy strip where our bedroom door opens into the short corridor. It looked calm, harmless, like nothing bad could ever live in a place with such bad lighting. I clicked. The feed loaded. A timestamp blinked in the corner. I slid the bar back to 11. We watched a ghost version of ourselves brush teeth and bump elbows and laugh when the water sputtered because the upstairs neighbors started their shower at the same time. The door closed. The screen went still. Midnight passed. At 2:14, a shadow crossed the lower edge. Not a person. A wedge of darker gray. Then gone. My pulse climbed. I scrubbed the head by minutes. At 3:02, there was the smallest flicker at the far left, like a key turning if a key was a shadow. Impossible. The deadbolt doesn't throw a shadow. I leaned in. Don't miss the morning, Marcus said softly. We have to be at the venue at 9 o'clock. We won't be late. I rewound to 2:58 and hit play at normal speed. The hall was still. The door was still. The numbers ticked. 3:01. At 3:02, the handle shifted by a hair. Nothing else. Then a pause, then the barest movement of the door toward the frame, like pressure from the other side, testing the latch. Then nothing. I felt a cold line run down my back. It's not enough, Marcus said. It's a start. Behind us, the phone on the counter buzzed. A message. It didn't need a name. I knew the rhythm of his texts. I didn't move. I kept my eyes on the hinge line. Promise me, we won't blow up Daniel's day, Marcus said. I promise we will protect it, I said. It was not the same sentence. We both heard the difference. I loaded the living room camera. It covered the entryway, a slice of couch, and the edge of the bedroom door. The timeline had a thin bar of motion. At 3:03, I selected it. The frame opened. Waiting. Marcus exhaled. Okay, he said. His hand tightened on my shoulder. Roll it. We watched the living room in gray. The camera had a wide angle that caught the heavy curtain, the edge of the sofa, and the rectangle of front door. The timestamp slid forward with that indifferent digital blink. 3:03, 3:04. A soft band of motion lit on the bar, thin as a breath. A shadow fell across the door's lower seam, not a full shape, a fractional darkness, the kind a hallway nightlight makes when someone stands just out of sight. Marcus's fingers curled at my shoulder. Their eye bumped the volume, even though there was nothing to hear yet. The mic mostly picked up refrigerator hum. We stared at the knob. It didn't move. Something else did. A brief glint, like the door hardware had caught a star. The angle was wrong for the hallway light. Boff paused and dragged the scrubber back frame by frame until the one bright pixel showed again. A line. No. A thin arc sliding past the latch plate. Quick and precise. Then gone. Pick. No. I knew the sound a pick makes. Metal nudge. Soft scrape. A patience that has to learn the lock's language. This was decisive. An arc, a key. I let it play. The door opened a finger's width, stopped against the chain, and then settled. A hand appeared, backlit dark with a ridge of knuckle and a knuckle ring. The ring flashed, not gaudy, familiar. I didn't breathe. The chain lifted. No, that wasn't right. The chain didn't lift by itself. Someone had reached in with something to catch the slider. The hand withdrew, the door closed, the chain slipped free off screen, and then the latch turned again. The door opened. A figure slipped through, not tall, coat hem brushing mid-thigh. The camera's light made the face anonymous, a smooth oval, but the posture, the way the head cocked, like the room, owed them information. That was not anonymous. Vernon. Marcus didn't say the name. I didn't either. We just watched the ghost of my ex-husband move like he'd rented the air. He didn't hurry. He paused by the couch and lifted something into frame. My scissors, the little stainless ones, pinched between two fingers. He set them on the entry console and rolled his wrist like he was considering them, then left them there, like he wanted us to know he'd considered them. He turned toward the hall. The camera only caught his shoulder and the edge of his hair. Fade neat, line sharp, and then the bedroom door filled the center. He hesitated. He looked back toward the living room. His hand came up and made a quick, casual wave like he was dismissing someone outside our view. Not alone. My jaw worked. Who is he waving to? Marcus shook his head. His eyes were fixed on the screen. I don't know. Vernon put a hand to the bedroom door and leaned in a fraction, just enough to listen. There was no flinch when he pushed. The door gave. He vanished into the dark. The timeline ticked. 30 seconds, a minute 30. Marcus's grip on me hardened, then eased at 3 minutes. A sliver of motion reappeared. Vernon backed out, careful, and paused again at the console. He picked up the scissors. He looked down the hall, then toward the living room window, like he was checking for an audience through the glass. His chin lifted a half-inch. That old theater. He slid the scissors into his coat, smoothed the front like he'd made a bed, and walked out. The door closed with almost no sound. The latch kissed the strike. He did not re-engage the chain. The screen stilled. The timestamp rolled forward into quiet. Marcus let out a small breath. It was the kind you only hear from someone who has been holding a very heavy thing to keep it from falling. He had a key, I said, and a tool for the chain. He always liked tools, Marcus said softly. That's how he thinks love works. We didn't stay in the gray. We showered, dressed, and drove to the venue with the card still warm in my pocket. The car's cabin felt too clean, too polite for what I carried. Outside, the city peeled itself into morning. Bakery doors propped with milk crates, a bus grinding its way into the day. The sky, a pale sheet stretched tight. Daniel met us at the side entrance in sneakers and a hoodie. Hair in lokes tied back like a crown he hadn't decided to wear yet. He ran to Marcus first, arms wide, careful around the scarf. Without making it obvious, he was being careful. That was my son's best trick. Gentleness that never called itself out. You look good, he said, and he meant Marcus's face and maybe the strength under it, too. Marcus smiled. And your turn. They looked at each other for a second. Longer than a second. Then Daniel glanced at me and saw something. His mouth narrowed. Mama, walk through first, I said. Then I need 5 minutes with you and Ashley. Is it? 5 minutes, I repeated. He nodded. We moved through a hall of white chairs, strings warming up on the stage, the florist pinning last bits of green into an arch that made the air smell like a promise in a garden. The venue manager fussed with a clipboard and a radio and kept glancing at us like all families are small. Fires. We got through notes about aisle timing and where the grandparents would sit and which mic to test. Ashley arrived from the parking lot with coffee and smiles and the first few beads of stress. Sweat like every bride I'd ever known. She kissed Daniel's forehead, then kissed Marcus's cheek, then shook my hand with both of hers. She was learning. She was trying. I gave her the smallest nod to say I saw the trying. 5 minutes, Daniel said. He pulled us into a side room with frosted glass and a sofa that wanted you to confess on it. The door clicked. Ashley looked at me like she'd practiced looking brave. And this was her using it. I put the laptop on the table and slotted the card. What I'm about to show you is not to blow up your day, I said. It's to protect it. Okay, Ashley said because she's smart. Marcus stood by the door, one palm on it, like he could keep the world out with skin. I cued the clip to the 30-second mark where the arc of metal flashed. I didn't narrate. I let the room learn the shape by itself. Daniel watched with his whole face, no flinching, no noise, his lips pressed white at the chain trick. When Vernon waved at someone off frame, Daniel's head tilted. My move, not his, and his throat tightened once. By the time Vernon was smoothing his coat and leaving, Daniel had his fingers on his own jaw, pushing back a tremble we both recognized. When it ended, Ashley looked around like the air might answer. Wait, that's your dad. she said to Daniel. The words measured like she wanted them to be a question, and also already knew they weren't. Daniel swallowed. That's my father. Do we know who he waved to? I asked. I don't, Daniel said. Door chain, Ashley asked. Bypassed, I said. Tool. Daniel's eyes went to Marcus. Are you okay? Marcus nodded once. Yes. And you? Daniel said to me. Are you going to? What are you going to do? I'm going to set a boundary, I said. And I'm going to keep this small. No announcements, no dramatics, if I can help it. Daniel let out a sharp little laugh that wasn't laughter. Dad doesn't do small. He will today, I said, and I meant it like a promise to both of them. We sat in that quiet for a count. Then the door opened without a knock. Vernon stepped in like he'd been invited. He wore a tailored blazer with a pocket square and a smile that was for strangers, not us. There you are, he said to Daniel. I need 2 minutes about seating because there's a mix-up and the ushers don't understand who goes where. Daniel's face blanked. The Lokes didn't move. Ashley put her coffee down with care. Vernon didn't look at Marcus. He didn't look at me. He only looked at Daniel like the rest of us. We're stagehands. Out, I said. Vernon's eyes slid to me. Good morning to you. Out, I said again. Quiet, Gladys, he said in a voice he saved for when he wanted to sound civilized. We all want what's best for Daniel's day. If your guest could be sensitive to the optics, he's my husband, I said. Vernon's smile didn't break. Of course. And optics are my point. We can seat him in the second row on the aisle, and everyone can see him. Graciousness in attending. But family. Daniel stood. Dad. Vernon turned. Relief on his face like he'd been waiting for backup. Son, the ushers. Did you go to Mama's apartment last night? Daniel asked. Vernon's mouth wavered and then found the shape of a scoff. What a question. I was at home. Alone. Vernon lifted his chin. I don't account to you for my evenings. I tapped the space bar. The clip started again. The flash, the key, the chain trick, the wave. Vernon watched himself enter a life that wasn't his, and in the slow wash of gray, his face did something I'd never seen it do. It emptied, not of guilt, of calculation. He was looking for exits. That's not, he began. Daniel's voice was steady. What did you do? Vernon glanced at Marcus for the first time, not at his face, at the scarf. The tiny twitch at his lip betrayed disgust he hadn't planned to show. Then he arranged himself again. I went to make sure your mother wasn't. He flicked a hand, searching for a word that would make him the caretaker. Compromised. With what? I asked. He ignored me. I wanted to avoid a scene today. I went to be practical. Practical. Daniel repeated, by breaking into her home and shaving her husband's head. Vernon's eyes sharpened. Don't be melodramatic. I trimmed. Marcus flinched like the word had touched skin. I took a step I hadn't meant to take. The room got smaller. Ashley moved a half step in my direction without making it about me. Marcus's palm lifted, air pressing my chest from across the space. Not now. Who had the second key? I asked. Vernon's gaze skittered. What second key? The chain requires 2 people if you don't know the trick, I said. You waved. Who has the key? He recovered. A neighbor. The nightman. Someone helpful. It doesn't matter. It matters, I said. Daniel's hands dropped from his face. He looked like the little boy at the kitchen table who solved story problems in silence and then showed his work with a single line. Dad, he said. Leave. Vernon blinked. Excuse me, leave, Daniel said again. This room, this venue, today. Vernon laughed, short and brittle. Daniel, don't be absurd. Marcus spoke for the first time. Vernon, he said, soft enough to make the name gentle, firm enough to make the wall behind it felt. Go. For 1 second, all the years sat between the 4 of us. Old dinners, old fights, new hope, bad habits with good posture. Vernon looked at the door like it should open by itself when he wanted it to. It didn't. Ushers need me, he said to no one. He lifted his chin, smoothed his coat, and walked out. The door closed with a simple click, like relief learned how to make a sound. Daniel's shoulders sagged. He sat. He didn't cry. He rubbed at a loke like he could unscrew the pressure from his scalp. Okay, he said. Okay. I closed the laptop. We keep this close, I said. No spectacle. If he tries anything, we handle it with truth. Quietly. Daniel nodded. Ashley nodded because Daniel did. Marcus nodded because I needed him to. And because he is braver than anyone understands. Outside, a violin found its note. The florist's radio crackled. The day kept moving. I pocketed the card and looked at Marcus. He touched the scarf and then my hand. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. We didn't make speeches. We made a pact. In the side room, after the door's click had settled into the walls, Marcus took my wrist and turned my palm up like he was reading how much trouble I still had left in me. Wedding first. He said, wedding first. I said back, just this second, just second. And quiet, he added, because he knows me. Quiet, I said. And I meant it with my mouth and hoped my blood would learn. We moved into the morning, as if it had been planned this way. Marcus adjusted the scarf. Daniel adjusted the order of events. Ashley adjusted to the reality that families are math problems with more variables than numbers. The florist threaded eucalyptus like a lullaby. The quartet rehearsed the processional until the hallway itself could hum it. Wardrobe became its own language. The stylist, sweet, efficient command in a cardigan, took one look at Marcus's scarf and pivoted without a blink. We'll frame the eyes, she said, and pulled a softer palette. A touch more liner, a little glow on the cheek, elegant, intentional. She shaped the knot lower, then higher, then found the angle that said choice, not cover. When she finished, Marcus looked like someone who had decided on every inch of himself. Thank you, Marcus told her. Of course. The stylist smiled, already moving. It's a beautiful day. We'd just gotten through buttons when the triangulation began. My phone buzzed, then Daniel's, then Ashley's, which was new. Gladys, can we discuss aisle optics privately? Don't let Marcus bully you into drama today. Gladys, your fiancé's being influenced. Gladys, we should seat with discernment. We don't have to advertise illness. Daniel's thumbs hovered, then lowered. He turned his screen down and slid it into his pocket. Do you want me to take that? I said, and returned to sender, the old-fashioned way. No, he said, we're doing quiet. Marcus's phone buzzed, too. He didn't look. He folded his hand over it like it was a bird. He was keeping calm. By 10, relatives had begun to arrive for rehearsal. Smiles too wide, voices too bright, the social lubrication of pretending we are all exactly as advertised. From that stream emerged the peacemaker. She was an aunt by stretch, a family friend who taught a semester of something at the local college, once upon a small glory. Navy blazer, statement necklace, a haircut that said, I still believe presentation matters. She came in with her hands up like a ref who loves the whistle. Gladys, she said, already soothing. Sister. We aren't sisters. Diane, I said, metaphorically. She smiled. She was built out of metaphors that excused behavior as complicated. Big day, emotions high. Let's not get positional. She made a tent with her fingers. I've spoken with Vernon. Of course you have. And he's committed to minimizing his presence. He suggests, with the utmost respect, that we stage a photo with the core family, birth family, you understand, and then fold in our beloveds. She glanced at Marcus's scarf for half a beat too long. Everyone gets seen. No one feels erased. Marcus's eyes didn't change. I'm not decoration, he said. God forbid, Diane said too quickly. Tell Vernon, I said, that any photo we take includes my husband where my husband belongs. Diane's smile stayed, but the skin at the corners of it tightened. Consider the day, she said like I hadn't. Isn't the higher road too, where? I asked. She spread her hands, palms empty. Harmony. Harmony isn't real if you have to turn the volume down on a person to hear it, I said. She looked past me to Daniel. That was her move. Speak to the reasonable child over the unreasonable parent. Daniel, sweetheart. A compromise. We're not doing committees, Daniel said. And God, I loved him. Please stop. Of course, she said, and left a small well of perfume and intent behind her. The day pressed on. Rehearsal down the aisle. Practice of names the efficient would not get wrong. The seating chart like a minefield we tiptoed around with tape and pens. Every time we bent over something practical, the air quieted. Every time we stood up, someone tried to make the quiet theirs. At lunch, Ashley's mother cornered Marcus with a tray of pinwheels and a look that had 15 unsaid questions stacked like plates. We're so honored you're here, she said. So are we, Marcus said, which was gracious and also anchored. I did small mercies with my hands, carried flower buckets, moved chairs, offered water. The doing kept me from replaying that gray arc of key over and over until it carved a groove in my head. It worked, until I stepped outside for a half-breath and saw Vernon across the circular drive. He was with Diane, of course. They stood just beyond the awning, angled so clouds wouldn't glare their phones. He was talking with too many teeth. She was listening with her chin tipped up like the sky was beneath her. My phone buzzed again. Gladys, I heard you're creating a narrative. I put the phone away. I didn't go over. Quiet, I reminded myself, is also a decision. By me. The rehearsal had dissolved into brief pockets of laughter, then recoalesced around the timeline for tomorrow, like iron filings around a magnet. Marcus took Daniel aside, and they practiced the boutonniere, how to pin it, where to hold. When they finished, Daniel leaned into Marcus's shoulder the way he did at 14. Like there was a gravity there that moved the world a little. The scarf didn't read as a story, then it read as flair. We closed day 1 tasks with a last check of the vendor list. When the clipboard finally left the building, the venue manager relaxed so hard she looked younger. People filtered to cars, the light tilted. 15 minutes, and then we head. I told Marcus, I want to swing by the house before dinner. For what? He asked, though he already knew. To back up the card, I said, and to get eyes on the doorframe in daylight. I knew it sounded like superstition. It wasn't. Wood keeps secrets about pressure if you asked the right way. We stepped into the drive. The circle gravel had that fresh rake pattern that makes everything look like a brochure. Families drifted off in pairs and trios. Diane held a door for Vernon like gallantry could launder anything. He gave her a smile shaped like reward. We cut along the road toward our car. As we passed the side of the building, one of the venue staff wheeled a bin of leftover programs toward an open hatch. The SUV was creamed to match the blazer, neat as a staged photo. Vernon, thorough in his brand, even matched his car to his narrative. Could use another hand, the staffer said. Cheerful college kid, shoulders carrying the day just fine. He pointed with his chin at the hatch. You with the wedding. Yes, Marcus said, already stepping to hold the bin steady. I followed, more out of habit than need. The hatch was packed like a traveling supply closet. Folding stool, blanket, a garment bag, 3 extra umbrellas in precise triangles, and on the right, a clear plastic box with emergency kit printed in tidy block letters. The lid wasn't latched. The staffer slid the bin in. The box shifted, its contents sloshing a little. Gauze, a tiny flashlight, a coiled nylon strap, a strip of adhesive bandages, and longer than they should be for that box. The small stainless shape I knew down to its bite on the skin of my thumb. My scissors. I didn't move for a second. The world narrowed to the reflection of the sky on the metal. The lid had a crack in one corner and a hairpin there, short and dark, caught like a fish in ice. Marcus saw my face before he saw the thing. He followed my eyes. His breath hitched, not loud, more like a skipped note. The staffer looked up, unaware. Oh man, is this your car? No, I said. He smiled. Then good. We're just. He shoved the bin farther in with casual force. The plastic box tipped and the scissors knocked against the side with the perfectly guilty clink of a utensil put away in the wrong drawer. I put my hand on the hatch, not to slam it, to steady the part of me that wanted to. Everything okay? The kid asked. Perfect, I said. My voice was calm. It scared me how calm it was. Thanks for the help. He nodded and walked the bin cart back inside, humming the processional without realizing it. Marcus and I stood there a beat too long for 2 people admiring a stranger's trunk. Quiet, Marcus said, voice barely air. Quiet, I said. I closed the hatch with 2 fingers like it might bruise. Behind us, laughter popped. Diane's. She and Vernon rounded the corner mid-story, his hands drawing circles in the air like he believed he could spin the world smoother with enough motion. Vernon clicked his fob. The SUV chirped awake. Daniel asked me to check the programs. He told Diane, lie, wrapped in competence. He touched the hatch like he was already opening it. I felt the truth burning a hole in my pocket. I kept my hands at my sides. Diane saw us. There they are, she said brightly, as if we'd joined a game she was winning. I was just saying, this is a day for magnanimity. Magnanimity, I said. Big word for don't be a monster. She laughed like I'd made a joke. You too, heading out soon, Marcus said, and the softness in his tone did not dilute the steel under it. Vernon lifted the hatch. The box sat in its place like something ordinary. The scissors didn't gleam now. They waited. His eyes ticked over the cargo. I watched for the flash of recognition, the microsecond of tighten around the mouth when a person sees the thing they thought was hidden. I saw it, small, real. Marcus's hand found mine, and pressed once. Not a stop, a hold. Forgot I had these, Vernon said to Diane. tapping the box like he was pointing out preparedness. You can never be too careful. Practical, Diane said. Because there's always a word for everything with her. Right, I said, prepared. Vernon looked at me, chin high. We do what's necessary to keep the day tidy, he said. Do we? I said, and the weight of what I wasn't yet doing sat on my tongue like a coin. He closed the hatch, the latch caught, the sound was clean. Marcus's hand slipped from mine to my forearm, a shift I knew meant later, not never. Wedding first, he whispered. Wedding first, I answered. Eyes on the hatch where my scissor slept in a kit labeled emergency. We turned toward our car. My pocket held the footage, the air held the promise, the world held still for the smallest pivot. Tomorrow we'd find out what counted as necessary. Morning cleaned itself into noon. The light went bright and honest, the kind that doesn't edit. By the time guests began to flow in, the venue had learned the choreography of pretending everything is simple. Public smiles, private brews. Marcus and I stood in the lobby where the floor was a checkerboard of marble that made everyone look a little more deliberate. He wore the gray scarf with the knot set to a decisive line. People complimented it like it was a choice. He let them. My job was to be a quiet wall that moved when he moved. Ashley took her place with her maid of honor and the official, both doing that nervous laugh routine that women practice, so we don't have to name fear. Daniel emerged from the groom's room like Dawn had decided to be a person. The air changed. The quartet slid into the first bars, and every chair learned how to be still. I watched Marcus watch Daniel. I watched the way Marcus's fingers pressed into his clutch exactly once, and then relaxed. I watched the way Daniel's eyes found us on that walk between who he'd been and who he was building. There is a trick to joy on days like this. You let it stand on its own legs, even while the rest of your life insists on tapping its foot. They met under the arch. Vows clear, hands steady. The room did that collective exhale that says, we are witnessing a promise, and we remember our own. Marcus breathed it in like medicine. Vernon stayed out of the aisle. That counted as restraint, I guess. He sat where the plan had set him. Front row, left, tilted toward the action like his attention deserved billing. Diane hovered in a side column, emitting helpfulness like it was a scent. When the kiss landed, and the applause broke, when the recessional pivoted us from sacred to social, that was when the peacemaker made her move. Family photo, Diane called lightly, already ushering with both hands. Let's gather the core first, birth family. And then we'll do the beautiful extended circle. She said it to the photographer. Not to us, because that's how you launder a decision. Put it on a clipboard or a lens. The photographer, a pro with kind eyes and a schedule to keep, nodded without catching the toxin in the sentence. Parents of the groom, right here by the arch, please. Daniel looked at me, then at Marcus, then at the space where Vernon had already arranged himself with the smile he saves for albums. I could feel the ripple around us, the way relatives lean to see if the fight will be a show. Marcus's hand brushed mine, a whisper. Wedding first. Quiet is not silence. Quiet is picking the battlefield. Don't do it, I said to Daniel. It costs something to say. Take the shot. Are you sure? Daniel asked. I'm sure. I turned to Marcus. You and I will be in the next one where you belong. Marcus met my eyes. He wasn't asking permission. He was checking my center. I nodded once. His mouth softened at the corner. Gratitude and a promise braided into it. The birth family photo looked like a scene from a brochure for a life we didn't have. Daniel in his tux, Ashley in white, Vernon angled to be seen, me off to the side like a placeholder. The shutter clicked. Diane clapped, her hands as if applause could wrap a ribbon on a cut. Perfect, she said. Now, let's widen the lens. The widening took work, not because the photographer couldn't do it, but because feelings move slower than feet. Marcus stepped in on my right. I felt the collective pause, that microsecond where the room decided whether to be decent or to be itself. Right here. The photographer said, gentle authority, and set Marcus in place like he was always meant to be in the frame. He was. I was glad a stranger could see it so plainly. Vernon's neck tightened. The camera didn't care. We shot combinations until the list was satisfied. Groom with parents, groom with step-parents, couples, the whole tumbling village. Through it, Marcus stood with the posture of someone unwilling to subtract himself. Daniel kept glancing to make sure the math held. It did. The trick of conceding that first photo wasn't about surrender. It was a deposit, leverage to cash, later if needed, against the inevitable accusation that we denied his place. We We gave it on record. Cocktail hour put everyone on their best lies. Miniature food made the rich pretend to be whimsical. I did rounds with Marcus, taking the hands that came our way, receiving the compliments on the scarf and the suit and the weather, like they were all the same size. People are generous on days like this. Even their gossip softens its edges. Gladys, you're glowing, said an aunt who sees what she expects to see. Reflection, I said, and let it be true. We moved like that until the room relaxed. That was when the orbit brought us almost accidentally to Vernon. He stood at the edge of the terrace, posture broadcast up and out, a flute of champagne like a prop. Diane lingered 2 paces off, ready to convert any conflict into language that would make her important. Marcus and I would have passed if he hadn't spoken. Marcus, Vernon said, bright, like a social host, the scarf is striking. Marcus turned to him with a calm that made the air steady. Thank you, you're very brave, Vernon said, which is a word people use when they want the credit for your restraint to splash onto them. Marcus didn't blink. I'm here for Daniel. Of course. Vernon's eyes slid to me. And Gladys, he said with a tiny nod that was meant to feel like civility. Thank you for not making a scene earlier. I'm relieved you're finally learning. I've always known where scenes belong, I said. This isn't one. His smile dipped at the corner. Let's keep it that way. Vernon, Diane said lightly. Circulation. She meant let me float you away from the place where truth concentrates. He let her. As he passed Marcus, he leaned a fraction toward the scarf like it called to some mean gravity in him. Then he slid off, a boat leaving a wake. We refused to ride. We stayed with the good. Ashley's grandmother telling a story that looped on itself but landed in a laugh. Daniel taking a candid with his college friends, his joy, unedited. A baby grabbing a binky and refusing to give it back as if it were newly discovered currency. The reception call came like a bell. We filed into the hall that had learned how to be a celebration. The band found its footing on something Motown, enough to make every age nod. The first dances tracked their prearranged arcs. I took my turn with Daniel and felt his heartbeat where our hands met. The quick bird of it, and I told him without words that this day was his and nothing would steal it. Dinner settled the room into rounds of small weather. Toasts lifted it again. Ashley's maid of honor kept it clean and specific, like a good joke that likes the people in it. Marcus's toast landed like warm bread, simple, close, nourishing. The clink of glasses became a rhythm. I kept scanning, not paranoid, just awake. Where's the heat source? Where's the fuse? The answer stayed respectful until it did and single quotes t. It started at the mic check. The venue had a small stage for speeches, soft lights, the kind of PA that makes every voice a little noble. When the coordinator called for any final remarks before we released the dessert, there was a micro-hesitation in the room, the kind that tells you someone has saved a surprise. The band leader held up a hand like an air traffic controller to keep the noise low. Vernon was already halfway to the stage. Diane rose, then sat, then rose again like a woman deciding whether to stop a train by talking to it. She didn't. She adjusted her necklace instead. I felt Marcus go still beside me. He didn't grab my hand. He didn't have to. Vernon took the mic with the poise of someone who practices speaking into reflections. I'll be brief, he said, which is how long speeches always begin. As Daniel's father, I want to say, the room had a forked reaction, the part that wanted to be generous and the part that already knew the shape of the harm. The generous part shushed the other one. Of course, they did. We were in public. He smiled at Daniel like it meant ownership. How proud I am of the man you've become. You are grace itself. He looked at Ashley as if she'd been added to the end of a sentence. And you are lucky. It could have stopped there. It didn't. We all know families are complicated, he said, and you could feel the temperature change by 2 degrees. Some people in this room have had a difficult time understanding what belongs where. Today is for the first chapter, not the revisions. The word revision hit the scarf like a thrown stone. It was clean enough to be deniable, sharp enough to cut. I was up before I knew I was up, not rushing, just standing. The bandleader saw me. The coordinator saw me. Half the tables saw me. Marcus's fingertips brushed my sleeve, a feather of restraint. Quiet, it said. Choose. I chose. I didn't take the stage. I walked to the sound booth at the back where the tech ran the slides and the mics and the feed to the side screens. He looked 19 and competent. The best combination. Hi, I said level. I'm the groom's mother. If anyone but the coordinator speaks again, please cut their mic. We're done with surprise speeches. He blinked, nodded, then glanced at his board like it was a friend he could trust. Thank you, I said, and went back to my table. Vernon finished his remarks, annoyed he hadn't found blood. The coordinator, now awake to the risk, took the mic with a smile that had one more tooth in it than before, and moved us firmly to dessert. Applause made a bridge over the moment. We walked across it. Later, when the room had returned to its planned happiness, when cake had been photographed and eaten, and the kids had formed a small circular hurricane in the corner, I stepped onto the terrace for air. The city had cooled into a soft glow, and the night pressed its thumb into the day's bruises until they embarrassed themselves and faded. Marcus came out a minute later. We stood shoulder to shoulder, quiet, to people listening to the same present. A drift of cologne whispered behind us. I didn't turn. Marcus did because he is braver than I am about looking a thing in the eye when it's trying to be sly. Vernon. He came alone. No Diane, no audience. That should have been a good sign. It wasn't. Congratulations, he said to the night. Not to us. It came together. Marcus's chin lifted a degree. It did. Vernon stepped closer. Not enough to be seen from the room. Enough to make the privacy look collaborative. He glanced at the scarf and then at Marcus's mouth, and then he leaned in the smallest inch, close enough for breath to be communication. Tomorrow, he said, voice made of sugar over glass, we'll discuss where you belong. Marcus didn't step back. I belong where I stand, he said. Vernon's lips found a shape that wanted to be kind and failed. We'll see. He made it almost a whisper, then let it drop the last inch, the way a person drops a ring into a drain to make a point no one else will hear. Some people just aren't meant to have time for the bouquet toss. The coordinator called from inside, bright as a rescue. Vernon smiled like he'd said nothing at all and went in. Marcus stood still, breathing like a runner who'd found the finish line and discovered there was another lap. I touched his back. We keep it small, I said. We keep it true, he answered. Inside, Ashley laughed as her friends gathered. The band found a new song. The room lifted. Behind my ribs. The next move set like a bone.